And welcome. We are live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Russia observes National Day of Mourning for the victims of Moscow terror attack. 11 suspects arrested, including 4 gunmen. Putin vows to punish those behind Russia concert massacre. UN Chief Antonio Gutteres appeals for Gaza ceasefire to allow in more aid, says blocked aid a moral outrage. India's External Affairs Minister says Pakistan uses terrorism as instrument of statecraft, asserts India will not skirt this problem anymore. Sunday, the 24th of March, is the day of mourning in Russia after a large concert venue near Moscow became the scene of a mass shooting late Friday. At least 133 people were killed, including children, according to the officials. DD India's Dasha Chernyshova has more from Moscow.
After the terrorist attack at the Krakow City Hall, Russian President Vladimir Putin said 4 men directly involved in the attack have been detained. Russian Interior Ministry says they are all foreigners. FSB had earlier said that these men were trying to escape to Ukraine. President Putin said it is now needed to identify all the accomplices who were involved in the attack, people who have helped to plan, stash weapons, get to the scene. He did not assign the blame, but said whoever they are, they should be punished. So now the investigation focuses on who stood behind this attack. Sunday has been declared the National Day of Mourning in Russia. But as the situation settled at the site of the attack, people started to bring more and more flowers in memory of the victims. Hundreds of people volunteered to donate blood. The body count has been rising as many people were trapped inside the rooms where they tried to hide from the gunmen and later suffocated. Dasha Chernyshova in Moscow, reporting for DD India.
And St. Petersburg residents brought toys, flowers and candles to a makeshift memorial to honor the memory of the victims of the Moscow attack. Mourning on the incident, the residents said it is a big tragedy and such tragedies leave a deep mark. Rostov-on-Don residents also brought toys and flowers and lit candles at a makeshift memorial of the Moscow attack victims. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Gutteres has called for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire and the release of Israeli hostages held in Gaza. He witnessed a long line of blocked relief trucks on Egypt's side of the border with the Gaza while visiting the Rafah crossing on Saturday. Israeli Foreign Minister Israel Katz criticized Gutteres in a social media post for blaming Israel without condemning in any way the Hamas-ISIS terrorists who plunder humanitarian aid. We have more.
Well, the United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Gutteres visiting that Rafah border, crossing the Egyptian side of the border crossing, calling it a moral outrage that so many aid trucks were lined up on the Egyptian side of the border and unable to access those who so desperately need the help inside the Gaza Strip. He said it was a moral outrage that could not happen. He also called for an ironclad commitment from Israel that humanitarian supplies can receive unfettered access to those who so desperately need it in the Gaza Strip. But asked whether or not he thought the Israeli government would heed his requests, he said, "It is clear that the Israeli government does not normally do what I ask it to do." So some level of skepticism from the UN Secretary General that this visit will have much of an impact, but it does join a chorus of international pressure when it comes to the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip, called catastrophic by aid agencies, and in the context of a rift between the Israeli government and some of its closest allies. We saw just in the last day or so Anthony Blinken, the US Secretary of State, here in Israel, meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu and the war cabinet, urging the Israeli government against an operation in the southern city of Rafah, pinned up against that Egyptian border, saying it would be a mistake and that the US position is that it should not happen. Prime Minister Netanyahu pushing back very firmly, saying even with or without US support, Israeli forces will go into Rafah, an operation which Antonio Gutteres, the UN Secretary General, say would lead to humanitarian catastrophe. Alex Kadya in Tel Aviv reporting for DD India.
An Israeli army released a video on Saturday of its commanding officer of the Southern Command commenting on the operation around Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza. The Israeli commander has said troops will continue their operation at Gaza's largest hospital, Al-Shifa, until the last militant is in their hands. Fighting raged on Saturday around Gaza's main hospital, where Israel says it has so far killed more than 170 gunmen in an extensive raid. Israeli forces launched the operation in and around Al-Shifa hospital on Monday, saying senior Hamas operatives were based at this sprawling compound. The Israeli military said that more than 350 Hamas and Islamic Jihad militants have so far been detained at the hospital, and a total of 800 people have been questioned. A gang leader has been shot dead by police in Haiti's capital streets after clashes between the national police and armed groups. Ernst Julm, who is known as Tigre, was shot dead in the capital, Port-au-Prince. Peace justice officials were seen recovering a dozen shot bodies who were allegedly members of the gang led by Tigre. Violence has been relentless in the city in recent weeks since rival gangs unleashed a wave of attacks this month, including raids on police stations and the international airport. The conflict has killed thousands and displaced hundreds of thousands. Regional leaders are trying to form a transitional council, and Prime Minister Ariel Henry has promised to resign once it is set up. Now, tensions escalated along the United States-Mexico border as migrants attempted to challenge the newly raised wire barriers erected on the border near El Paso. Texas Department of Public Safety troopers stationed on the U.S. side of the border fired non-lethal projectiles into a crowd of migrants attempting to dismantle the razor wire barriers. A U.S. appeals court on March 20th began hearing arguments on whether to continue blocking Texas law that would empower state authorities to arrest and prosecute migrants for illegally crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. The dispute over the Texas law is one in a series of legal battles between Republican state officials and the Biden administration over the state's ability to police the border. Now, in London, dozens gathered outside the Foreign Office to protest against a new national security law that came into force in Hong Kong on Saturday. The protesters say the law, also known as Article 23, erodes freedom in the city and damages its international financial hub credentials. It took effect at midnight, days after Hong Kong's lawmakers passed it unanimously, fast-tracking legislation to plug what authorities called national security loopholes. Protesters included Fin Law, one of 8 foreign activists against whom Hong Kong officials issued an arrest warrant last July. He said he did not feel safe living in the UK since the authorities had put a bounty on his head. And about 23 Nigerian soldiers have been killed and 17 others wounded by suspected insurgents in the country's town of Tillaberi. Defense authorities say the soldiers were carrying out raids designed to reassure locals in the area of their safety when they were ambushed by the insurgents. DD India's Tessa Makande reports from Jos in Nigeria.
The authorities say the troops were also able to neutralize 30 of the insurgents. More than 100 of them had attacked an army unit using homemade bombs and suicide vehicles. Niger Republic is ruled by a military junta which toppled the government of President Mohamed Bazoum in a coup in July last year, citing a worsening insecurity as a reason. But the security concerns on attacks are yet to abate. In January, about 10 soldiers were wounded in the country's southeast and about a dozen insurgents killed after they clashed at a border town with Nigeria. The latest attack on the soldiers is coming barely a week after the Nigerian military announced that it was breaking off its military cooperation agreements with the United States. The country, just like Burkina Faso and Mali, also pulled out of West Africa's regional bloc ECOWAS, which has been addressing the security issues with a multinational joint task force comprising 15 member countries. The three countries have now set up a joint task force to tackle security threats in their countries. They say it will be operational soon. Tassum Akende in Jos, reporting for DD India.
Now, Britain's Princess of Wales continues to receive messages of support from around the world after her cancer diagnosis. She announced the news on Friday without details about the type of cancer she is receiving chemotherapy to. DD India's Oli Barrett reports from London.
The guidance from Buckingham Palace is that we shouldn't expect regular updates now on Catherine's health, on her prognosis, on the type of treatment she is having and how it's going. She wants the privacy that she called for in her message on Friday, and we may well not see very much of her in the weeks, indeed potentially the months ahead. After her abdominal surgery in January, we had been told that she would return to royal duties at some point after Easter, but it is clear that that timeline is going to shift as a result of this cancer diagnosis. We have been told by royal sources that she is optimistic about her prognosis and her treatment, that she is in good spirits. She did say in that video message on Friday that she is focused on making a full recovery. The King as well, who's also suffering from cancer, praising her for her bravery in announcing to the world her diagnosis in the way that she did. Royal sources also tell us that Prince Harry and his wife Meghan have been in touch with William and Catherine from the United States. There have been strains in that relationship in recent years. After the King was diagnosed with cancer, Harry visited him here in London very quickly. It remains to be seen whether he will do the same after Catherine's cancer diagnosis. But as I say, the palace being very clear that there are not going to be now blow-by-blow updates on Catherine's health and on her treatment, and she hopes that the public and the media respect her calls for privacy that she made on Friday. Oli Barrett in London, reporting for DD India.
Now, Sudan is currently gripped by a heat wave with temperatures rising up to as high as 42 degrees Celsius. Muslims in South Sudan's capital city, Juba, are observing the fasting month of Ramadan under extreme heat. Community leaders in Sudan said they are finding ways around to cool down while abstaining from food and water. To cope with the heat, people are preferring to drink more water during iftar. Earlier, the Met Department had issued warnings that there will be unusually high temperature in March, particularly in the northern parts of the country. Now let's take a look at other stories making news. US President Joe Biden signed a $1.2 trillion package of spending bills, which includes a crucial policy with humanitarian ramifications for Palestinians during Israel's conflict on Gaza. The bill eliminates US funding for the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian refugees until March 2025. Hundreds of pro-life activists rallied through Argentina's capital on Saturday, demanding the repeal of the country's abortion law. Argentina's President Javier Milei has expressed its rejection of the abortion law passed in December 2020. During his presidential campaign, Milei promised to hold a constitutional referendum on the abortion law. South American country Brazil is battering with heavy rains and landslides in Rio de Janeiro state. According to concerned authorities, at least 7 people have died as a result of heavy rains on Saturday. Rio authorities remain on alert on Sunday as the cold front is expected to move away from the state. Landmark places across the world went dark on Saturday to mark the Earth Hour. Paris Eiffel Tower, Australia Sydney Opera House, Victoria Harbour in Hong Kong, Tokyo Tower in Japan, and India's Rashtrapati Bhavan and India Gate in New Delhi observed the Earth Hour by dimming light to raise awareness of conservation and climate change issues. All right, we'll simply do a very short break, but still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Poll fever grips India. Congress party releases fourth list of candidates. Bharatiya Janata Party holds Central Election Committee meet. Kidambi Srikanth goes down in close Swiss Open semi-finals. India's renowned sand artist Doordarshan created a sand sculpture at Puri beach to pay tributes to Moscow terror victims.
In today's episode, let's try to understand what does it mean to truly celebrate all women. Let's uncover the layers of their struggles in different walks of life.
My biggest motivation was to save the environmental waste that I was creating, to reduce the carbon footprint, waste footprint. And when we talk about menstrual waste or periods as a topic, I think this fits in very well with the intersection of social and environmental issues.
The weather in Meghalaya is definitely one of the center points of how we design these systems. And then sort of maybe just take the region in the state and try and design a system that is designed to work in that situation.
We address financial education topics, from making a family budget to creating a small business plan for micro-enterprises. Topics also include health and wellness for women.
Global temperatures have changed these days. That too, it doesn't rain where it needs to rain. And in this situation, the only crop that survives is millet.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar took a dig at Pakistan over its terrorism activities, saying that the neighbouring country is sponsoring terrorism at almost an industry level.
How do you deal with a neighbour who does not hide the fact that they use terrorism as an instrument of statecraft? Now, it's not a one-off happening. I mean, different countries at different points of time have experienced this. But a very sustained, almost an industry level, assembly line of people whose job it is to do bad things at night. To produce this with the intent of pressurizing your neighbor becomes a real challenge. So what we have come to conclude is that we have to find a way of addressing it, that dodging the problem gets us nowhere. It only invites more trouble. So I don't have a quick instantaneous fix. But what I can tell you is that India will not skirt this problem anymore.
Speaking at an event held post his lecture session on his authored book Why Bharat Matters at an Institute of South Asian Studies of National University of Singapore, Dr. S. Jaishankar slammed China for disturbing the foundation of equilibrium and violating border pacts in 2020.
We're not talking of solving the boundary dispute. We are talking about maintaining peace and tranquility on the border. And we had. I mean, from 1975 till 2020, nobody got killed on that border. So for 45 years it worked. We have to ask ourselves today, why is it not working now? And until we have that stabilization of the border, to me it is illogical to expect that the equilibrium building, the relationship building, doing more things would move forward.
And during his 3-day visit to Singapore, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar met Singaporean corporate figures on Saturday and appreciated their feedback on the India growth story based on investment experiences. Now let's get you the latest on what's happening in India in the run-up to the world's largest democratic elections in India. Now, managing logistics in a country with 968 million voters is an incredible task, and it will be carried out by the Election Commission of India when the country holds general elections. Our next report tells you more about the ECI's role and powers.
After India became independent in 1947, the founding fathers of the Indian Republic envisaged a representative parliamentary democracy based on the universal adult franchise. Keeping in line with those ethos, the Election Commission of India was established on 25th of January 1950. The ECI is an autonomous constitutional body responsible for conducting and regulating polls. Its powers are broadly divided into three categories: administrative, advisory and judicial. The administrative powers include registration of eligible voters, preparation of poll schedule depending on the availability of resources both in terms of execution and security needs, scrutinize nomination papers of candidates. The poll body's most important task is to ensure the fairness of the electoral process and prevent incidents of rigging, booth capturing and violence. Coming to advisory powers, the ECI can recommend the President and the state governors to disqualify sitting members of Parliament and members of legislative assemblies respectively if they are found guilty of indulging in corrupt practices during polls. As for the judicial powers, the Election Commission cannot review any poll result on its own. This can only be done through an election petition which can be filed before the High Court. But the ECI can settle disputes related to recognition of political parties. Apart from ensuring free and fair elections, the poll body has also been organizing various awareness campaigns to increase voter turnout. Bureau Report, DD India.
And the Congress Party on Saturday released the fourth list of 46 candidates for the upcoming general polls. With this, the Congress has declared a total of 183 candidates for the upcoming polls so far. Uttar Pradesh Congress President Ajay Rai has been fielded from Varanasi against BJP candidate and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Congress leader Digvijay Singh will contest from Rajgarh constituency, Imran Masood from Saharanpur and Danish Ali from Amroha. The party is yet to announce its candidates for the Amethi and Raebareli constituencies. And Bharatiya Janata Party held a meeting of its Central Election Committee on Saturday to decide the names of the candidates for the upcoming general elections. The list, which is expected to be announced on Sunday, will include candidates from Uttar Pradesh, West Bengal, Rajasthan, Odisha and Andhra Pradesh. The election for 543 Lok Sabha seats will commence in 7 phases starting April 19th. Now let's take a look at other stories making news today. 5 people died and 2 were injured after a massive fire broke out at a chemical factory in Jaipur district in Rajasthan on Saturday. 9 fire tenders were rushed to the spot to douse fire. Chief Financial Officer of the district said that the said chemical factory was illegal and that the owner of the factory also fled from the spot. "21 people died in Punjab's Sangrur district after consuming spurious liquor on Tuesday. According to the police, alcohol containing methanol content was used for making spurious liquor. So far, 8 out of the 10 identified accused has been arrested in connection with the Sangrur hooch tragedy. And after a terror attack on the Russian capital Moscow, India's renowned sand artist Doordarshan created a sand sculpture on Puri beach, Odisha on Saturday. Through his artwork, he strongly condemned the terrorist attack and offered condolences with the families of the victims. And against snow-laden odds, Border Roads Organization reopened Zojila Pass and record 35 days, known as the Mountain Pass of Blizzards. It connects Ladakh to rest of the country via a road link. Sports now. Will start with badminton. Kidambi Srikanth's long-awaited resurgence came to an end in the semi-finals of the Swiss Open Super 300 after a narrow loss. The former world number 1 failed to capitalize on his chances, going down 21-15, 9-21, 18-21 to Lin Chun-Yi in a match that lasted an hour and 5 minutes. From one lens, this is a satisfactory outing for Srikanth, who was struggling to string together back-to-back wins on BWF Tour and has broken that duck with a semi-final run. But from the other angle, this will be a missed opportunity for the former world number 1 to reach his first final since the 2021 World Championships. IPL now. Andre Russell's all-round effort headlined Kolkata Knight Riders' sweaty 4-run win over Sunrisers Hyderabad in the IPL match at Eden Gardens on Saturday. Russell's brutal unbeaten 64 of 25 balls with 3 fours and 7 sixes and Phil Salt's more pragmatic 54 of 40 deliveries guided KKR to 208 for 7. Left-arm pacer T. Natarajan was their most successful bowler with a 3-wicket haul. He took 3 for 32. At several points, SRH threatened to chase 208 down, particularly when Henrik Larsson went berserk in the back end of the innings. But the Hyderabad side fell agonizingly close to the target, with Harshit Rana saving 12 runs in the final over. And the focus will be on KL Rahul's form and fitness as Lucknow Super Giants take on Rajasthan Royals in their Indian Premier League match in Jaipur on Sunday. Rahul missed the last 4 tests against England due to injury. Rahul will look to hit top gear not only as a batter but also as a leader of Super Giants, especially after guiding the team to successive playoffs in the first 2 seasons. His opposite number, Sanju Samson, will be keen to find his rhythm right from the start. Both the teams will have some tough calls to make as they figure out their best 11. Royals have a solid batting lineup, boasting of the likes of informed Yashasvi Jaiswal, Josh Butler, besides skipper Sanju Samson. In another match, 5-time champions Mumbai Indians will kick off their IPL 2024 campaign with a game against Gujarat Titans on Sunday in Ahmedabad. The match will mark Hardik Pandya's return to Mumbai Indians, which traded Pandya from Gujarat Titans and appointed the all-rounder as the skipper of the team. Pandya already has 1 IPL title, having led Gujarat Titans to the silverware in 2022. The other vital players are Rohit Sharma, Suryakumar Yadav, Ishan Kishan and Jasprit Bumrah. Meanwhile, Gujarat Titans will be led by Shubman Gill. The other key players are David Miller, Matthew Wade, Riddhiman Saha and Kane Williamson. Alright, that's all for this edition of DD India Live, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Abhishek. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.